Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools we've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also listen to a whole host of shows that have been archived out as special shows where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. And we hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials if you have any of those to share with us. We greatly appreciate you doing that. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archive for your feedback or input. And an alternative to that would be you can join us live. If you open up a browser window in Zoom or give us a call on one of their Zoom numbers, and then just enter our meeting ID number, 853-2357-4173. So you can either call on your phone or open up a Zoom browser window and type in 853-2357-4173. And you can join us live for a discussion or type something in the chat room. Or just listen. And we have great appreciation whenever anybody does share with us, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be a service, and we would just greatly appreciate if you'd help us step up to that more easily, because when we get feedback from you about what's working and what's not working, it just makes the job so much easier. So we have plenty of time for comments and questions. I realized as I was getting ready for today that we're just about 2 weeks and a few days from having Christian Sundberg join us for our hour on Friday, August 8th, this internet show hour. If all goes well, Christian Sundberg will be available. So if you have comments, if you have questions, if you've been making a list of your questions, that would be greatly appreciated if you would join us. Either email me your questions ahead of time at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org or join us live that day with your questions in hand. And we will endeavor to get your question answered directly from the source. In lieu of anybody raising a hand, we'll go back to the book. We've got, I forget exactly how many pages we said yesterday that we've got left in the book, but we're at 333 of 352, so we're about 20 pages away from the end of the book. And the question he asked next is, Sally, did you unmute for a reason?
I did. I have a question. On the MindShisterAcademy.org website, under the audio library, there are many entries in the library that work very well. And then toward the end of my list, there are many, and it says error. Is that error me? Like something that happened when
No, that's
downloading?
probably, no, that's one of the possibilities is if you're on one of the bigger pages that I have there, if you're doing it through a mobile device, it may be trying to download too big a file. I mean,
Okay,
the website itself is trying to hold too much on your device and download.
okay. Maybe you're right. I am doing it on my brand new MacBook Air, so it's a laptop. So I
It
will.
shouldn't, if you have a good internet connection, then it's probably not the problem I'm thinking of. It might be that there's some bad links over time. I've got to go check that out. And you're talking about being on the
Mine's
audio library page.
correct. And under audio library, I have let's see, Guy Finley 319, and then after that, everyone after that is just says error, like all the way from. So, and then there is one podcast, Truth is a Pathless Land. That podcast worked or showed up. So I couldn't make sense of it in my own mind, why some would show up and then they were like, I just needed to ask you. So if you just look into that with me, I'll do my part to fix anything on my end.
Okay,
And
and one of the ones that shows as an error is, what's the title for that? One of the ones that shows up as an error?
the first one is MS Radio 57 2019 excerpt on special relationships. That is like actually overview of the work is also an error message on my screen. And then all the ones after that say error up until that one I just mentioned. Truth is a pathless land in 4/11/2019.
Yeah, well, they're working on my phone right now, so we'll have to explore that a bit.
So,
If you have things like that that happen, please
oh,
do what Sally just did and let me know, and we'll check on it.
thank you. And I'll get it working. Where there's a will, there's a way, and there's definitely a strong will in me to hear everything that I can. The one I was looking for specifically this morning, and maybe you can guide me, is the one on the Beatitudes. Do you remember doing that one?
Well, I know that we have listened to the Beatitudes on the support group on probably Tuesday and Thursday, as they were described and laid out in a beautiful presentation by Jayem, who is the person who channeled the Way of Mastery. Is that what you're referring to?
That is what I'm referring to. I wanted to reference that again. Maybe you could send it to me or we could listen again sometime.
Yeah, I'll find a way to get you access to that.
Oh, that would be so great because I care a lot about that kind of thing, the where there was this one translation that didn't really hit with me, but what I heard JM say did hit with me, and I want to explore that a little further. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. And what I've done is I've transcribed from that JM DVD on the Beatitudes, and I've transcribed out what he says is the King James version of the Beatitude on the left, and then the new version or interpretation that's offered by JM on the right. And so there's a PDF of that. Did you already ask me for that? And did you get the email of that?
I did not, and I would love that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And if
That would
anybody's
be
interested
great.
in that, all you have to do is send me an email and I can just copy and paste that little PDF in there for you. And it's, you
Done.
know, it's a matter of as Michael Rice has been coming to lately, he's talking about how important it is for him to make a distinction between a translation and an interpretation. And he is talking a lot lately about how there's no such thing as a Greek translation of the ancient Aramaic. They're all interpretations, and many of them are way off the mark. Well, that kind of thing has been talked about. Different people that do research into the ancient languages like the Aramaic and the Greek and the Latin and the Koine Greek and things like that, they they hold opinions, they hold data points that they think arrange in a certain way, and so there's a lot of people analyzing other people's work. And in this, I'm not so much worried about what was the absolute, did this actually happen? Did it mean this when this person was alive? What I'm interested in with this work is the practical application of effective tools that can help me change my life experience for the better. So when I have an upset, I can take a breath and turn the focus inside myself and ask myself, how am I creating this upset? If I do nothing more than that, if that's the only thing I take from this work, that can change my life for the better. This stepping into closer and closer to 100% responsibility for every experience I have internally. And then if you want to go to the next levels and understand what's the actual dynamic that I use to create the emotions that I experience. How is it that it's my choice of what I'm focusing my mind energy on that creates an upset or a peace?
That's really helpful. I was reading in the Course in Miracles yesterday. I have a group that meets every Monday morning, 10 a.m. And we were reading specifically about translation versus interpretation. And I stopped on that paragraph, highlighted it, and made a note to ask you this question today because I wanted to get clarity in my mind about, okay, that was an interpretation. I appreciate it. And translation is an attempt to find the words that preserve the original meaning from,
Well,
like from
there's
when.
a there that that's a this is foggy territory, right? Because
Mm.
what you're saying is that translation is an attempt to preserve the original meaning. And what Michael Rice uses in several of his stories is examples are different examples of how you can have a bulletproof translation and say nothing about what was intended, what the original
Got
meaning
it.
was intended, right? So the example he uses is cool and warm body temperature. Oh man, that was cool. You saying I have a low body temperature? Oh no, man. What it means is, I really like this about you or that about you. And then Dale Allen Hoffman uses the same thing, and he says, let's just try the word bad. You know, in the slang, in the street language, bad means good,
Good.
really
Yeah.
bad, right? And so you say to somebody, hey, tell him I think he's a real badass. And then the translator turns to the person and says, yeah, he says you're no good. The translation was accurate as far as
But
translations go. It didn't say anything about the intention. Right? What I was hoping to communicate
got
was
it.
approval, and what I communicated or what got communicated instead was upset and disapproval. So what's actually meant is only relevant for me if it's going to help me in a practical way improve my life experience. I'm not interested in the clinical debates and academic debates and who has more letters behind their name and who's approved of by such and such an external accrediting agency. I like to keep this work very practical. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and this person has a history of, a very well diagrammed history of getting into relationships. And as soon as they start getting good or intimate or close, this person runs for the hills. And when they can stay aware of that urge and that dynamic and then not just reflexively act on it, then they can introduce choice into their life. Then they can actually start to analyze what's going on in this relationship, and is it worth my time and attention, and is it making my life experience better, or am I really just having an impulse to leave because I always have an impulse to leave whenever relationships get to this level? And we can't embrace questions like that unless we've slowed down, unless we're paying attention, unless we're taking those calming, centering breaths, unless we're absolutely clear that we don't need to do anything, and yet we have the potential to do all kinds of things. I forget, I think it was the book Positive Intelligence that I was listening to again recently, and he's talking about how the evidence is pretty solidly in that says all this work that people pride themselves so much on doing, all of this multitasking, it doesn't really pan out. It's an illusion that people are being more productive when they're multitasking. Every time that I've ever heard of a study that's measured it, they find out that no, these people that think they're so great at multitasking, they're not doing as well at these tasks as people that just get focused on one thing and move it through to completion, rather than people who have 17 plates spinning, trying to keep them all going at the same time. So are you willing and able to slow down and start viewing your life situation and your choices in relationship from an entirely different, more relaxed position? Are you willing to say, wait, I've tuned into the fact that I've got a tightness or a tension in me, and my top priority is dismantling that tightness or tension before engaging in a thought process about how to move forward in this relationship or in this situation or on that work project. If I'm willing to do that, if I'm willing to spend just a few in this one book, the Positive Intelligence book, he offers these little exercises that are only 10 seconds long. He says, if you're willing to engage in this 10-second exercise, things will shift in your life for the better. Pick up the tool and use it. And of course, in our Western mind, the way everything is mapped out and layers of complexity that we're taught to tune into and appreciate, this is going to seem way too simple. There's most of the time these deeper spiritual truths talk about the one step, the first critical step, the most important thing. And it's just so simple that most of us look right past it and say, well, it can't be that easy. Well, we didn't say it was easy. We said it's simple. And digging a ditch is simple. Shovel in, dirt out, shovel in, dirt out. But it's hard work. And it has to be focused and it has to be consistent over time. That's the same kind of thing here. I've got to be willing to focus my conscious awareness on what's happening in my own thought process and in my body's energy system. And when I'm willing to tune into that and use it all as a self-referential set of guideposts and feedback loops. So the emotions that I'm generating don't have anything to do with that person over there or that situation over there. The emotions I'm generating have to do with me. And if I can turn my awareness back into the process that's generating my emotion, I can get some insight. I can get some awareness. I can open myself up to different options or different interpretations. Same data points rearranged, sometimes just slightly, sometimes dramatically differently, lead to almost opposite conclusions. So, thoughts, comments, questions?
Thank you for all that. And I wanted to just simply say that of all the radio shows I've tuned into, this is the first time that I'm home taking it slow and just, enjoying the day. And it's just, I'm trying to pretend I'm somewhat retired, but it's great. It's great to just be with you in a place where I can actually talk to you without the background noise, and you're speaking to the choir here, or you're speaking to the woman that needs to hear these words. So thank you. And
Well,
I'm going to
you're
go
very
grab
welcome.
my Course in Miracles book to see if there's any. Thank you.
See if there's any you broke up. See if there's any what?
Uh, yeah, the course book that I was reading from yesterday, when you said it was kind of murky territory, I remember highlighting it, thinking, this is murky to me. I need to go back and revisit this because it's murky. And it,
That's our word for the day,
it's
murky.
murky. Yeah, the translation and the interpretation and the bad is good, and yeah, because it matters so much what Jesus taught. And yet we're it's taken us well over 2,000 years to get a glimmer of what it was about. So I find that just fascinating. And I'm grateful, just grateful for this work. I did send you a quick email just to remind you of that PDF, and I will be listening as we finish the Christian Sundberg.
All right. Well, and I'm appreciative that you're there listening and for your comments and questions. I frequently come to this point where there just aren't any words to try and describe to people how much better my life experience has gotten since choosing to actively apply these tools day in and day out. So whatever the upset is, at whatever level, tiny, little, mild, moderate, severe, whatever, if I'm willing to apply these tools and ask myself that question, how am I creating this emotion? I literally program myself to see and experience the world in a different way. And it has been beyond words improved the more I apply these tools.
That's beautiful.
So if there's nothing else, I'll return to our Q&A from A Walk in the Physical with Christian Sundberg. The question we left off with was, I've got to keep an eye on the switchboard because people keep dropping in and jumping off. And so to return to the Q&A, there's a question that reads, is there really such a thing as spiritual growth? No, that's not the one. Why can't out-of-body experiencers always see objects in our world exactly as they are? And Christian writes, well, there have been quite a few cases of near-death experiencers who have experienced verifiable physical world events while their physical body was clinically dead. Common veridical reports of near-death experiencers include activity in the hospital, the confirmable actions of other people at varying distances, and sometimes even things like objects on the roof of the hospital. However, I think it's important to realize or to release the assumption that the shared, apparently objective physical world of the earth is, quote, the reality, close quotes. That is the only gauge of veracity. We've been trained to believe that external and repeatable results are the only way to confirm that something is real. While I wholeheartedly hold up the scientific process, and while it is indeed important to objectively test what reality is, this materialistic assumption limits our total understanding because reality is not ultimately based on an objective world of matter. What if, how do you account for the fact that our science demonstrates to us that there's all kinds of energies flying around the room right now that our senses can't register? And for years, our scientists didn't even know these things were there or how to measure them or how to keep track of them, but they were still there. They were still having their impact on our lives. So for science to say, unless you can see it and feel it and quantify it, it doesn't exist, is ridiculous because science has indirect ways of measuring other things. So they can know its existence, but they can't see it or feel it or measure it directly. But they have evidence of its existence and they use evidence of its existence in their world. So he says, I wholeheartedly uphold the scientific process and understand that it's not the only way to verify matter. Rather, this apparently objective world of matter only occurs as it is experienced, right? It only occurs the way it is being experienced because someone is there to experience it. And the someone, the something, the consciousness The awareness is what's fundamental, not the physical form that arises and passes away within awareness. He writes, that which experiences life, the flow of life, consciousness itself, can and does engage many other reality systems. So it's not sufficient to only look in this one system for your answers. That being said, to more directly speak to this question, OBE states are not limited to this local physical reality frame. There are layers of reality. Some are very close to our own and some that are indiscernibly similar, but not always the same. Many OBEs happen in those layers. So OBE stands for something, birth experience, other birth experience. I don't know what the B is for. He writes, one time I was out of body walking around my house, and the experience was so real, so normal and lucid, that I was questioning whether I was out of my body or not. I actually concluded that I was not out of body. In fact, I felt foolish for even questioning whether I was until I walked through a wall. I did not pay attention to the location of small objects in my house when that happened, but I suspect they would not have been located in the same exact places as in the real world. I think part of what happens is that even those layers of realities are closer to the earth reality and more thought responsive and individual responsive, and the rigorously consistent object placement that we're used to on earth simply is much less important. Yeah, it's there, but it doesn't really matter if it's 2 inches to the left or 2 inches to the right. If you're in a layered reality where there are multiple dimensions that are right next to each other but can't sense or experience each other, that means you're starting to move into a realm where the simple laws of our physical world and physics don't hold, or at least not as rigidly as they hold here. So what's the possibility? The possibilities are endless. As long as I'm opening to the possibilities rather than holding that I know what I know and it's all that I need to know and nothing is ever going to change. So we have plenty of time. I'll read the next Q&A. The question is, he writes, I feel like nothing should exist, but actually everything exists. And that blows me away. This creates endless and obsessive thinking because I feel compelled to seek the answer. Why? Christian writes, perhaps when you take the leap into beholding that which does exist, you are assigning it the idea of fundamental reality. In other words, since there is form, you believe that it is mightily real. And so then you feel incredibly compelled to work your way through all of that form. What's all of that form means? Every thought, everything that's been written, everything that's been spoken. And you want to work through all of these things, that you experience all these things directly. And you want to build new understandings. And then you want to debate this and that so that you arrive at some new place of understanding, etc., etc. He writes, that is natural and good. It reminds me of the Seth quote that I love, where Seth said, quote, consciousness rejoices in sensation and creativity. You cannot understand what you are until you understand these things. Close quotes. And Christian writes, yet simultaneously believing in the apparent fundamental reality or realness of form is precisely the action that is the confusion. because the formless consciousness that we call I falls asleep into the form when it does that. In other words, we forget that our true nature is the consciousness itself. We forget that if we focus on something and we believe it's real, that's what creates its realness for us. And this consciousness, awakeness, our ability to be awake and aware can, he calls it falling asleep into form. In other words, when you believe you are human, you become human. When you believe the identity, you become the identity. When you believe the thoughts, you become the thoughts. When you believe the thoughts are fundamentally real, they seem fundamentally real. And you become, quote, nothing more, close quotes, than the associations of those forms, the innumerable relationships among thoughts and things. And it's very stimulating. However, as you can likely agree, you do not find pure joy and utter satisfaction in beholding the multitude of thoughts and things, because they always lead to more. The joy of being can and does shine as it appreciates its creations in the world of form, including its intellectual creations. However, it can quickly lose itself in being, quote, only them, close quotes, in believing that they're separate. The separate self seeks endlessly within the world of form, looking here and looking there, turning over every rock. There's no rock you can look under to find what you seek, because the rock appears not as, quote, all there is, close quotes. Rather, it appears as just a rock. So the point is, a lot of words on this page, they're talking about the power of my focus of thought. If I believe I'm human, I literally have the experience of being human. When I believe I have a certain identity, I become that identity. When I believe I am my thoughts, I become those thoughts. I'm seeking something in the world outside of me that actually is only available inside of me. So I go onto this endless search outside of me. But he says there is no rock you can look under to find what you seek, because the rock doesn't look like it is all that is. It appears as it's just a rock. Looking under the rock is looking away from what you really are, turning the focus inside, understanding, as St. Francis of Assisi said, you are what you're looking for. When you go out to seek God, to become enlightened, you are what you hope to find. And because you're looking outside of yourself, you can't ever find it, because the essence of what you are is all you need. He quotes Eckhart Tolle here as saying, quote, become at ease with the state of not knowing. This takes you beyond mind, because the mind is always trying to conclude and interpret. The mind is afraid of not knowing. So when you can be at ease with not knowing, you've already gone beyond the mind. A deeper knowing that is non-conceptual can then arise out of that state. All kinds of things can unfold from that state that are different, but only if they're allowed to. A deeper knowing that is non-conceptual can then arise out of that state of not knowing, that comfort with not knowing. He writes, Eckhart Tolle's quote is about moving towards being okay with not knowing, being okay with not understanding, being okay with not grasping. That is, there is power in not looking under the rocks, and power in being okay with not even looking at all. Ironically, even though that feels like a move away from understanding, it actually is a move towards understanding, because in so doing, we take a step back towards that which is fundamentally real. That's life itself. All things arise in perfect order within that, and all things are known within that. Life itself, all that is. The point is, as we march around and spend so much of our energy and consciously focused on what we've been programmed to be focused on and think about, as we do all of that in that very narrow way of conscious logical focus, we're literally hiding from ourselves other avenues of knowing, other energies, other potentials and possibilities. Several kind of I almost said antique, classic Guy Finley stories just flooded into my mind. One was about a king who sent his son out to go conquer a new land for him. And he equipped him with an army with plenty of supplies and, you know, knights and uniforms and shields and all that good stuff. And they were several days away from his father's throne room, and the territory started getting familiar, but more rugged, a little bit more mountainous. And he goes, "Oh, I think we're nearing the place." And after the end of a long day's ride, they ended up near the opening to a ravine. But the ravine seemed to go a long way, and then it seemed to curve around to the right, and then they couldn't see anything. And they'd sent a scout up, and the scout said, "There's, it's too long a trip. It's going to be dark. I can't see." So they camped there the night. The next morning, Prince says, "Okay, my dad sent me here. We got to get over there. Take my two finest horsemen with all of their gear and send them around the corner." And there's all this wailing and gnashing of teeth, and the horses come running out, and they've been stripped. There's no metal on them, and the men get tossed into the bushes, and they come limping back. They look like death warmed over, and the prince says, "What was going on?" And they said, "Well, there's a horrible monster over there. It's umpteen thousand arms. You'll never get past it." And he goes, "Okay, next two guys, march ahead." And this happens for half a day. All his people are getting beat up. And finally, he notices there's a little man halfway up this side of this mountain just chuckling every time he sends men there. And he goes up and says to him, "Well, what are you laughing at us for? I'm on a serious mission here. I've got to claim this territory for my father, and there's a monster over there that's trying to prevent us. And I've got news for you. I'm not giving up. And my dad didn't raise any wimps, and I'm going to go." And the old man laughed. And he said to the prince, "You don't understand what's going on here." And the prince got lividly angry and started screaming. And the old man just chuckled quietly to himself and waited for the prince to go on with all of the ways in which he's right and what he knows that he knows. And finally, the prince calms down. And he says, "Okay, so if you think I'm wrong, how am I wrong?" And the old man says, that monster is not a monster. That's the guardian of that land. And that monster knows that they have these tremendous lightning storms over there. And if you go over there and you've got metal armor and metal shield and all this other, you're going to get fried. So that monster is just there trying to strip away everything you don't need so that you can get full access to all of the beauty and wisdom of the other, this next kingdom. All the stuff that we think we need, all of the stuff that we think we are, literally prevents us from understanding who and what we are. And in this Q&A, what he's talking about is, if I believe I'm just a body, I create an experience of myself as just the body. If I believe form is the most important thing, and if it's not in form, it's not real, then I create an experience of my life that is very, it may not be one-dimensional, but it's not as fully dimensional as it could be. This, if I believe that I absolutely need my protections, I need my distance from people. I can't let people know what my real thoughts are. I can't let them know that I'm having emotions. The more I do, the more I act from thoughts like that, the more I limit my life experience, the more I create upset. I had a couple sessions already in just the past couple of days where people are talking about how they've been programmed to have a certain physical and emotional response in reaction to different events happening, and they know exactly what they should do. If somebody does this, then you do that, and they're growing into the awareness that they've just been programmed. They're they're for all intents and purposes, they're just a biological robot. And unless we can call that programming of our own nature into question, we can't be freed from it. We are literally just going to sentence ourselves to this confinement, to just reliving the same type of activities, the same year of our life over and over and over again, imagining that we're living alive and fresh and new, but we're not. We're really just repeating old patterns. I'm just thinking about the family constellations work, which is so powerful, and we've been talking to people lately about the family constellations work, and there's somebody who does it about an hour from where I live here, and there are people like Mark Wolin who's written a book about it. It Didn't Start With You is the name of his book. Mark Wolin, Wolynn. So we can pass on these beliefs and we can live as though our beliefs are the truth of life, or we can live in the question. We can open up and start to nurture that part of our inner being that can be excited about and happy about the process of learning, can be excited that there's always the possibility to learn and grow and expand and become more. And I get it. I've like anybody else, I've been trained for decades into the system that says you get rewarded when you're correct and you get punished when you're wrong. And so you've got the carrot and the stick acting to build this conditioned response that has us almost, um, you know, critically obsessed with being right and wanting to fight about things. And yet there is that quote from, I think it was Bertrand Russell, where they want to get us to wake up to the idea that if I'm willing to be upset about something I'm arguing about, chances are pretty good I am trying to pretend that the data points prove a point beyond what they prove. The quote from Bertrand Russell was, if an opinion contrary to your own makes you angry, that's a sign that you're subconsciously aware of having no good reason for thinking as you do. If someone maintains that 2 and 2 are 5, or that Iceland is on the equator, you should feel pity rather than anger, unless you know so little about arithmetic or geography that this person's opinion shakes your own contrary conviction. The most savage controversies are those about matters as to which there is no good evidence either way. Persecution is used in theology, not in arithmetic, because in arithmetic there's actual knowledge. But in theology, there's only opinion. So whenever you find yourself getting angry about a difference of opinion, be on your guard. You will probably find upon examination that your belief is going beyond what the evidence warrants. Close quotes. So if you're going to get angry, it's your choice. You're the one who generates anger. You do that by pouring enough of your mind energy into a particular thought. So we have some times for comments or questions. Today's a Tuesday. There will be some level of participation in a support group tonight. I'm not sure exactly how the attendance will be. We have some people that are traveling, and it's not always easy to predict how many we'll have, but we have anywhere from 5 to 8 or 9 people. And if you'd like to join us, all the information available to do so absolutely free is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. And there's a separate login information page for Tuesday and a separate one for Thursday. And I thank you, Sally, for letting me know that there are some glitches on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. I will look into those. And if you or anybody else has an issue not able to get one of those links to work, please send me a notification and I will do what I can to find a solution. So if nobody has any questions or comments, we're down to about the last 4 or 5 minutes. Please feel free to join us tonight from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central, or pass that information along to somebody you think might benefit. And remember, we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Did you unmute for a reason, Celinda?
Yes, I just wanted to have you send me that PDF that you're going to send to Sally, and thank you very much. I think that was the Jayem one, possibly.
Yeah, that's about the Beatitudes, his interpretation of the Beatitudes.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I will definitely be at the support group this evening.
All right. All right. Well, look forward to talking to you then. Blessings. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.